Sup guys, and welcome to the 17th tutorial on my PHP backend. So in this tutorial we're gonna look a little bit how you can make your URLs a little more pretty. So at the moment we have kind of a messy structure here. You get to specify everything with get parameters, and this works of course, but it's not really pretty when you have to specify the name for everything like this, and especially this part where you specify the controller and action, because it means that you will display your internal structure in your API, which is not as nice as the solution we're going to look at. So in this tutorial you might get some problems with your stuff, because it's not going to be the exact same as mine, most likely. So we're going to work with something called htaccess files, and if you haven't heard about them before, then I suggest you just Google around a little bit and pause and see what they're about. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite our URLs so that we can use a URL that looks like this instead. So we want to specify the API, and then our controller, and then our function, just with like a slash in between. And also if we have parameters, we will be able to specify them here after, but we'll look at that later. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up Apache or Nginx, because the way I usually run it when I use PHP Storm is I use the internal PHP basic server. You can take this command and just run it from terminal also if you like. It could be the exact same thing. But the problem is that the basic PHP server doesn't deal with the htaccess files. So in order to make this work, we need to set up Apache instead. And I suggest you also choose Apache, because Nginx doesn't work the exact same way with the htaccess files. So I suggest you use Apache, and you can try to use Nginx of course, but then you might run into some problems that isn't specified or covered by this tutorial. But that's totally up to you. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'll call it public. And this folder will serve everything that is public. So I'm going to take my index.php file and just drag it in there. So in the future in here we will have maybe images. If we have CSS files, we can put them in here as well. But since this is an API, most likely won't serve anything other than this file. And then we're going to create another file, and we will call it .htaccess. And this file, it needs to be named exactly like this. So make sure you have the correct name and double check it, because if you have the wrong name for it, it won't work. Also, if you are on a Windows platform, you might run into some problems creating this file, because Windows can be a bit cranky about creating files that start with a dot, because of the whole file extension thing that Windows is trying to uphold. So what you want to do is that you want to create it from CMD, or also you might be able to rename it. So if you could first create one file that is called _.htaccess, and then you try to rename it. But you can just Google around if you run into that problem. But I suggest you use a command called touch, and I think touch is available also on Windows. Let me just double check that. Oops, CMD that is. Windows equivalent of touch is echo, I guess, something like this. And yeah, but you can look up that in yourself if you run into that problem. So the first thing we need to do is also modify how the vendor is imported, because this isn't correct anymore, because the vendor is like one up. So you need to fix that. And this will create the first step. And also what we want to do, we want to echo out our get variable, but just use var dump instead, it's better. So like this. And if we try to run it now, it won't work because it can't find the file because we put it in a separate folder. So we'll try the public instead. It should work, but it's complaining also about the env file because it also changed where the env file is located. So let's try this instead. Alright, so now we're back to square one and we can see all our get parameters as well. So this is where it differs from your implementation to mine. So I'm using MAMP, and I'm guessing you're using XAMPP or WAMP if you're on Windows, and if you're on Linux, maybe you're using LAMP. And you need to figure out yourself how to change the the root of your project. So for me, it's pretty simple. I basically just do this. And then I locate my project. So previously my root was for this folder. So what I need to do is that I need to specify it for the public folder instead. Like this. And it'll automatically restart. And if you're doing this on terminal, you need to call the reload command. And if you're on Windows, you can probably just click and restart Apache. So now we have everything set up, and if I try to run it, I should get the same result. And if I try to use this instead, because I changed my port here because I have MAMP running on this port, so now I should get the same result. And if I try this, it won't work. Nope. So this should be able to get me to the root of my public folder. Alright, so now the basic setup is done. We have switched to Apache from what we previously had. And now we want to look into how to define the htaccess file. And I gotta be honest with you here, htaccess files are pretty tricky and I never really learned them, but I basically fiddle around with them and try to get stuff working and trying out, and it's always super messy. But when you get it working, it just works, and then you don't have to modify it ever again. So the first thing that you need to do is to make sure that you have your rewrite engine on, and this command does that. And then these 3 lines, it specifies that if you have any subfolders in here, it won't rewrite, but instead it would follow the subfolders. So for example, if you would have like an img folder here for images, it wouldn't work unless you had this one specified. And also if you want to specify a certain file, it wouldn't work unless you had this one. And the third one is for soft links, I think. So this is where it's get interesting, the last one. So these are rewrite conditions. And the rewrite rule we want to do is that we want to use this regex expression here. And basically what it does, it's looking for API in the URL. And then this part is a group in regex, which basically says any character at all and any length at all. And it'll take that regex and it'll rewrite it to this. So it'll rewrite it to index.php, which is our previous index file. And it'll put a URL get variable in there, and the $1 is for the matching of the regex expression. So it'll take everything that matches here and put it in here. I could hardcode something in here, of course, if I like, but the $1 is for if you're using Unix commands. This is the same thing. You can use $1, 2, 3, 4 if you had multiple, but $1 is for the whole regex here. And these are the right rule conditions. I'm not 100% sure what they actually stands for, but you gotta have exactly this. Also, by the way, make sure you don't have any white space in here for example, like this, because otherwise it won't work. So it's super important that you have the exact same file as I have here. So let's save it. And if I try to run it now, let's see what happens. And nothing really happens, no real difference. But instead, let's see if I can try my new URL, see what happens. So as you can see here, it uses the get variable that we specified. It has the URL get variable, and it has the regex expression that it matched to. So it had API, and then everything that matched after it that it rewrote it to. So this is basically everything for the first part. I'm going to continue in the next tutorial on how we're going to use this for routing. Because I guess you can see right away that we're going to use this get variable for the controller and the action on the controller and parameters. So I hope it wasn't too messy for you guys to get everything up and running, and I hope you didn't run into some serious problems. And the only suggestions I have for you is to try to Google your way through this one, because on the specific platforms and applications that you're using in your environment, because people have been in the same situation as you are, I can guarantee that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.